of that, getting hit multiple times. Coming out of that bike section, more drivers coming to blows.
Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. Whether you're just looking to have fun, train for race day, or become a serious esports competitor, Ricmotech has you covered. Hundreds of name brand parts. Support from experts that love sim racing. Trusted by the pros. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com.
The SCCA Foundation is a 501c3 organization serving as the charitable arm of the Sports Car Club of America. One of the programs partially funded by the foundation is the SCCA Academy, an online learning management system used to keep real-life racing track officials up to date on the highest standards of race safety and officiating. Through this program, the SCCA Foundation is supporting the future of the best trained corner workers and event officials in motorsport. You can support these efforts at www.sccafoundation.org. The search is over. The most comprehensive league scoring solution is here, with the ability for multi-level championships, custom incident tracking, post-race time penalties, support for heats, drop weeks display, multi-car team scoring, advanced web widgets, rookie championships, a custom paint system, and load those results in seconds. Visit extremescoring.info today.
Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com.
Time for the first Enduro of the season, and why not let it be at the prodigal home of United States Endurance Racing? We are live here on slow motion broadcasting for the Ricmotech Racing Simulators GT3 Challenge here at Sebring International Raceway. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're watching us around the world. My name is Jeremy Scott. Maunz is alongside with Joshuah Wilkie, back in the booth, making it sound oh so good for the Ricmotech GT3 Championship. Ron, we're going to dive right into this because we have a very special guest joining us, and he's actually in the waiting room. So let's bring in Noah Hogg, who is the driver of one of the Aston Martins in GT3 AMP. And Noah, thanks for joining us. I know we got to have a little bit of time left, but let's talk about this new championship. I know that you and I have seen each other all throughout different championships. What makes this championship so much more special than some of the others you've raced in?
Honestly, I have not been in a non-multi-class championship before, so technically this is multi-class because of skill levels, but just one car is new to me, so I'm really enjoying the challenge of not fighting other classes through traffic, and also just making sure that I can run my race without the unpredictability of a multi-class race. So,
and of course, a lot of these drivers that you race with as well, you know, they're very, very good at what they do. They're very good at staying steady. So that also has to help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's been pretty good at giving space and fighting cleanly in this series. I had my issues in round one, but that's been resolved, and keeping my eyes forward. So.
All right, before we let you go, talk to us a little bit about this round. What do you expect for the 65 minutes here at Sebring?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult. I know they were talking about possibly some cars and some driving styles needing to do a little second stop for a splash of fuel with the fixed setup. So that'll be interesting. I know Aaron has been a fuel-saving god, so he's probably not going to have to make a second stop. But the rest of us are just scrubs, so we'll be stopping twice, and hopefully that pans out for us.
Well, good luck tonight, and we will hopefully talk to you at the end of the show.
All right, I would love for that to happen. You guys have a good night.
Here's all. It's Noah Hogg, our special interview for the night. Well, qualifying done and dusted already, Ron. 65 minutes around Sebring. It doesn't matter how long it is. It's still a tough challenge.
Yeah, any length of time around this racetrack is a real test, so we're going to have to keep our eyes on this as we go throughout the night. These drivers certainly going to be tested around what, as you said a little bit earlier on in this broadcast, is a pilgrimage of endurance sports car racing here in the States. I love Sebring. Very rare to find people who absolutely hate this track with a burning passion. I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, I'm always fan. Repave Sebring and Bank Turn 17. I know it's unpopular, but either way, Sebring, if you get a chance to go, highly recommend you go at least once. And of course, Florida, very lucky to have two very popular endurance races, I'd say within a couple of hours of each other. Well, before we get this pace lap going, we've got some bills to pay right now. Of course, our title sponsor is Ricmotech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment. Visit them online at Ricmotech.com. Go setups and go fast. Use code XMS10 at checkout for a 10% discount. Also, the race stewards are sponsored by the SCCA Foundation. Visit them at sccafoundation.org. The SCCA Foundation provides funding for the SCCA Academy, training the next generation of race worker and volunteers that make road racing events possible. And speaking of the SCCA, Ron, we're knocking down the door of the National Championship runoffs at Road America here in just about a couple months' time.
Yeah, we're also coming up to my favorite event of the SCCA calendar, that being the Solo Nationals out in Lincoln, Nebraska. Had the opportunity to race in them on 4 separate occasions in 2016, 17, 2021, and 2022 between both the Junior B, Junior A categories back in the first 2 seasons, and then the shifter kart modified classes a little bit later on. But of course, a big deal with the National Championship runoffs, and many of the drivers that we have here in Slow Motion Broadcasting between all of our leagues have some connection in some way, shape, or form to the SCCA. Of course, with Ray Esports stuff, Stevie Ray, the former series admin of the SCCA iRacing League back in the pandemic. It's a pretty strong connection that we have here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, not the least with my own connection with the SCCA, having been a member since 2014. But Jeremy, we are rolling here on this pace lap, so I think it may be about high time that we take a look at how the drivers are going to line up here for tonight's race.
Yeah, Joshua Chinsky, your pole sitter with a 59.727, and that absolutely beautiful Corvette. We'll have the number 27 of Eduardo Cabal alongside in the second position. That Ferrari looking nice and slick. Row 2 is Palaqui Grant in the number 71 D2D Sim Racing BMW. Up will have to be Filippo Barbieri alongside in the 186. He is your fastest AM driver. Take a look at row 3. It's the 60 of Chris Thorman, that D2D Sim Racing Aston. Looking also next to the 45 of John Kroom. Kroom rolls off from the 6th spot in his Ferrari. Take a look at row 4. It's Carlos Barriero in the number 14. You see the bobbing and weaving there as they head down towards the hairpin. David Patton, the 64 alongside. And Ron into the top 10. It's Johan Alvarez. Great to see him up there in his Porsche, and alongside Bobby Childs, the man, the myth, and the legend in his own mind.
Yeah, then looking outside of your top 10 here tonight, Noah Hogg will start this race in P11 in that Velocity Motorsports number 41 Aston Martin. Joshua Vidal will start in 12th there in the HSR Phantom Racing Machine. P number 13 will be David Klimovich in the number 21 Mercedes. Here you can see him right there, lucky spot P13. It'll be the number 331 Ferrari driven by Aaron Sunday, joining him on row number 7. Row number 8 will see series admin Jeff Jacobs in the SCCA Foundation number 38 Mustang. He will start next to Dale Maxwell in the 001 Black Flag E Motorsports car. Dale Maxwell will start this race here in 16th position, as Adam Cohn will start this race in 17th there in the number 11 machine. Still trying to get caught up here. There's Jeff Jacobs. There's Dale Maxwell. And here's Adam Cohn in the Speed Lab Esports number 11 car. Russ Ruddick will join him there on row number 9, with Jasper Pasternak starting this race in P19 in the 127 Velocity Motorsports car. Ilyas Akbari will start in 20th here in the 55 machine. And that will just about round out your field here, I believe, for tonight's race. Pasternak not taking the green flag out there on the racetrack, currently down in pit lane. So 19 drivers set to grab the green flag here in a couple of moments' time, Jeremy. This is going to be a heater, the first endurance race of the season. 65 minutes of action to look forward to at a track where 5 minutes feels like an endurance.
It really does. We'll take a look at points a little bit later on. It's field working their way down the back straightaway as you see them side by side going down into that final turn, Sunset Bend. I made a joke about how they always they should bank turn 17, but man, you get it right, and it's absolutely fantastic as they work their way around the final corner for the last time at slow speed. The pace car makes his way around the track. Glad to have you with us here on Slow Motion Broadcasting as the field slowly makes their way up through to the start finish line. Already starting to fan out 2-3 wide. Green flag is out as we are underway here at Sebring. You see a little bit of jostling there in the middle of the pack, but for the most part, Chinsky gets a good run through turn number 1. So we hold our breath. So we go from wide all the way to narrow. Does everybody make it in? No! Couple of problems. Martin nose into the wall, but the rest of the field make their way so far.
Unfortunately, I believe that was Noah Hogg. High hopes heading into this race, but that's going to go down the drain. Jeff Jacobs also in trouble, along with David Pan has a big spin heading out of the turn. That's Chris Thurman, the Aston Martin, the number 60, spins his way heading out of turn number 5. We were worried about turn 1, but that seemed to be the least of these drivers' worries at the start of this race. Now taking a look at some side-by-side battling heading off into the turn 7 hairpin. That's some brilliant racing there towards the tail end of your field. You got John Kroom going side-by-side with Carlos Barriero. That's a fight for P5 on the road right now. Barriero in that Lamborghini looking to try and squabble up there in the Huracan. A Hurricane from the Huracan side by side as they head their way through the top end.
All the way around the tower turn, they make their they go into Cunningham, I should say, then through Collier. I always forget going into the Big Bend. That's always a tough spot right there. That's Field working their way around now into Tower, side by side action. Oh, a little bit of rubbing there as a couple of cars already. It's one. Russ Reddick deciding to go take the tow into the pits. You're looking at this Klivich Alvarez battle. That is for 10th overall. It's also for in class battles. They're side by side, making their way through Bishop, now heading into Le Mans, the old WAC pit entrance right through there. And this is a long run through the Almond Straight down into Sunset Bend comes. You got a battle for position up ahead. That's Cabal and Barrieri, Filippo Barrieri for 3rd place overall, as Filippo Barbieri is your AM leader, but he thinks better of trying to dive to the inside of Cabal, but does it again, pokes that nose to the inside of the Ferrari. You're on board with the Mustang, and this is what I'm talking about here, is that bump. Now here in iRacing, you don't normally necessarily see it run, but in that the bridge over the final corner, there's a blue dot that you go under where Barbieri's trying to go under Cabal for turn 1. Again, this is the battle for 3rd place. It gives Chinsky and Grant a chance to open up a big gap right there as that Mustang Barbieri trying to see if he can make his way into 3rd. But back to my point, you don't necessarily see it in iRacing, but there's a blue dot right where drivers need to point their car. And that's what makes things a little bit difficult here at iRacing. To the outside of Big Ben goes the muscle of the Mustang as Filippo Barbieri gets his way up to 3rd.
Yeah, and able to get that move done for the M driver to jump up into the podium after a mistake heading out of turn number 5 for Eduardo Cabal. Just got beached on that outside curb as he headed his way through there, and it was game, set, match from there. They always say that you have to respect the bumps here at Sebring, and that is certainly the case. These drivers have got to try and ride the bumps like you'd ride the wave if you were a surfer there in the beaches of Florida. So keep an eye on that as we go throughout tonight's racing action. But I gotta say, Jeremy, as much as this track is built on an old Air Force base and is right by a still active airport, we've got a train running around this racetrack right now. Chug a chug chug.
Amtrak does make a stop in Sebring, so no surprise here that we've got a train making its way through. You see the back of Vidal as you see several drivers right there still side by side for that 10th spot. Again, Klivich and Alvarez, we've seen these two go nose to tail throughout there. Actually, Klivich trying to hold off Maxwell this time as they make their way coming off for the Maunz down the Ullman Straight, nose to tail and nose to tail. The draft working quite nicely for a lot of these drivers early on in this race. Now, kind of take a little bit of a breather and set the stage for these stints. What we were handed is, this is definitely a 2-stopper to say the least. If you can make it in 1 stop, that's because you're really saving a lot of fuel here. 1 stop's going to be a full service. The other one is going to be a short service.
Yeah, so gotta keep an eye on that as we go throughout this race. The strategy is going to make a world of difference. This pit lane, nothing to scoff at here at Sebring. It is decently long, and considering it is entirely, against straightaway, you are having to worry about some real hard battling going on around you right as you exit out of there. Keep an eye on the pit exits as well. It is brutal trying to merge there on the outside of turn number 1, a turn that is bad enough to go through there on your own, let alone with a slow car trying to exit the pits there as you head your way through. So lots of things to worry about with that pit lane, and we'll probably see a lot of those pitfalls befall these racers as we go throughout the night. Hey, I'm a Poden, I don't know it. Keeping our eye on your top running drivers, Chinsky and Grant, that small little duo really been able to pull away. As look at this farther behind, this is a full-on monsoon of action that we've got right now. Joshua Vidal currently caught up in the crossfire.
single files. They work their way through the twisty bits, heading into Cunningham, actually into Tower, I should say. You know, here's the thing. I love this track, but at the same time, the different corners, as close as they are on what I'm going to call the IndyCar test track for the portion of the program, it makes it just a little confusing as you make your way toward Le Mans. And, you know, something else to think about, too, with this being an airport and former airbase, the different types of tarmac that you're using, whether it be on the old runways or through what was the old living quarters of the Air Force. As they work their way down, you see Vidal blinking his flashers. He's going to look to the inside. Childs not going to make anything happen. Child making that Ferrari a little bit wider than what you normally see, and that's just him parking it as you see Maxwell looking to the inside of Alvarez, as Alvarez doing what he can to try and keep that position. So a couple of battles near the back of the pack. You're not missing anything at the front, as a lot of these drivers starting to open up a gap at the top 8.
And riding on board Dale Maxwell all over the back of Alvarez as they headed their way downtown into turn at number 1. Maxwell, a veteran of XMS competition, looking to get a move done here, and he dives it down the inside heading into turn number 1. The Mustang Grunt able to get done heading into the heavy braking zone. That's how you fight. Maxwell jumps his way up into 11th there in the 101 machine, and now Alvarez actually dumping off the track, hop, skip, and a jump over that outside curve that we've already seen catch at many racers so far here. Now feeling some pressure from Aaron Sunday in the Onid Racing 331 machine, as Sunday now feeling pressure from David Payne as they head their way out of that section. Payne gets a door slammed shut directly in his face heading out of the hairpin.
I mean, Ron, so yeah, something to watch out for. We saw Aaron kind of dip a couple of wheels, at least one wheel off there at the hairpin. So that's going to be, the longer we get into this race, it's going to be quite interesting to see how it all plays out. Out of Cunningham they go once again, as Sunday, he's got to play offense and defense, a very tough kind of set of circumstances here. Now he's got to play more defense on Patton as they're working their way through out of Tower down towards a couple of the back corners on the end of this lap, going through sector number 3. It's still Chinsky, your leader in pro. Filippo Barbieri in the AM class is 4, a little bit further back of the field, but still a lot of great racing. And here's the thing, Ron. If you are one of these drivers at the back, are you reverse strategizing, knowing how hard you're going, because these tires, they're just going to get eaten up?
Yeah, you do have to pace yourself here at Sebring. Talking about the bumps around this track disrupting the car, they're disrupting the tires a whole lot. It is a giant cheese grater, a sophisticated cheese grater and a giant cheese grater, but a cheese grater nonetheless, that these cars are running around for an extended period of time. So those tires, even these harder sports car tires, are really going to be beat up. As contact heading into turn number 1, did not have a good feeling about the move that Adam Cohn was pulling off there heading into 1, and it ends in tears. Side by side, ends in disaster. Those two drivers were chasing each other's tails, and I did not have a good feeling about it. It was contact with Vidal, and on the cutback there, Cohn was really crowding him down there on the bottom. Should be noted, unlike some of the previous rounds of this championship, Kevin Ford race control is not here tonight. That will likely be the catching the ire in post-race review, though. That looked, in the best of words, very preventable.
Yeah, that was an extremely preventable. Both cars going down for the same piece of real estate. Cohen taking the tow back into the pit as he gets the mechanical black flag. Russ Rudnick already our early casualty here as he is out of this race. Jeff Jacobs still in the pits after copping some damage. Same with Adam Cohen, who we now see in the pits. But Vidal sitting in there in 8th place. He's going to have to worry about Dale Maxwell in just a little bit. We saw the moves that he's been making in that Mustang, and I have a feeling that's going to happen sooner rather than later, especially going down into the Ullman Straight right there, where the Mustang can really stretch its legs.
Yeah, when we get into the straight line areas, that is where the Mustang really grows into its features, shall we say. That Mustang, when it started off on iRacing, wasn't exactly the strongest in the world, but it's still running quite all right. So keep an eye on those Mustangs when we do go down this Ullman straightaway or on that start-finish straightaway. Then you find yourself really hitting this car's stride. You know, talking about the differences between all these cars here in this series, Jeremy, this is one that I think can cater to all of them. You've got cars that are super strong heading down the straightaways. Others that are a lot better in the high-speed corners that can develop that downforce and really handle the turns super duper well. Then you've got others that are better in the slow speed sections. There's a part of this racetrack that will be a strong suit for pretty much every single GT3 car there is.
Yeah, they really will, and that's what makes this series oh so fun, and really any GT3 series. Doesn't matter if it's multi-class that has GT3 or GT3 only, because you have, the strong brute V8s, and then you have the finesse of the V6s, that whether they're, middle of the car or at the back of the car. So there's a lot of balance here, and that's what makes this series so fun, which you know as well as I do, Ron, is trying to find what car works best. We see a lot more drivers moving to the Aston, and I keep pointing back to this as we see a replay of the start. A lot of the drivers didn't choose the Aston until the Evo package came out, and you see Noah Hogg. Was that a little bit of contact I saw back there?
I think there may have been a little bit of contact, but it was potentially up in front of him. Let's take a look at this. That's a traffic jam as you head your way through here. No, just lost it as he headed his way through the bumps. It was in that medium speed sort of area where that is a very uncomfortable situation for that car. Heading through turn number 1, there is no middle ground. You've either got to attack it with everything that a race car has, or you got to putt around there at the pit limiter. That is basically it. He found himself in that very nasty middle ground where there's no room to negotiate at all. So take a look at a replay here to see what happened to Adam Cohn. We saw that incident hang down the start-finish stretch into turn number 1. That was a little bit earlier. Hop, skip, and a jump as he headed his way onto the Ullman straightaway. Nothing major there. I will say, have to address this, Jeremy, I think sometimes here the pre-race interview can be a bit of a kiss of death. It hasn't happened too much here on SMB, but I know some of our old pals over on the other network have run into to similar issues there as well. I was thinking that we wouldn't be just Dr. Doom, but I guess I'll chalk it up to my Philadelphian block.
Yeah, somewhere Greg Ginsburg is getting a kick out of this jerk. Johan Alvarez, he's sitting there in 11th place. Love you, Greg, by the way. He knows it. He knows I like poking the bear a little bit. Alvarez, though, he's been kind of poking the bear himself. He's fallen back a little bit, but still within striking distance of Klimovich should something happen. Which, by the way, Klimovich and Maxwell still battling for 9th place. And got to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So that'd be about, what, 5th place in class right there? As you see those two working their way through the hairpin. I've got to say, this is a nice track, but my favorite part of Sebring is walking all the way down in front of the hotel and watching the cars at night in that final hour in the darkness negotiate the hairpin. Just, it's any endurance lover's wet dream.
Yeah, I gotta say, and this is honest, waking up to race cars in that hotel and going down to enjoy the Continental breakfast, that's probably the best entertainment that has ever been shown in a hotel breakfast area ever. Yeah,
if you get a chance to stay in that hotel, definitely do it. As Barbieri kicks a couple wheels off down heading Ullman straight. He's got a Eduardo Cabal behind him, Ron.
Yeah, so a little battle going on right now here for P3, the final podium spot. Interclass battling here as well. Cabal, current P3 runner of the pro drivers. Barbieri, top of the AMs, and maybe just sliding a little bit as he headed his way through Sunset Bend, not keeping too tight of a line as he headed his way through that section. These drivers looking to pace themselves well, but they can't afford to lollygag around too much because Carlos Barbiero and John Kroon, who are still involved in their own little fights, they're only about 2 seconds back, and 2 seconds is very easy to lose here at Sebring. Not that hard to, well, not that easy to try and gain. So super duper easy for that 2 second gap to disappear into nothing. A little bit tricky for them to try and pull out any more than what they have got currently. So keep an eye on that little gaggle of cars as they may start to get vacuum sealed together as we go a little bit farther along here in this race. Just a recap on that point, Jeremy, talking about the SCCA Solo Nationals a little bit earlier on. Stays at some interesting hotels out in Lincoln and on the way out there. Super 8 in South Bend, Indiana. Very interesting hotel breakfast area. 98% of the people that are in there are dead.
That's that's South Bend for you. I'll say that. But I will say, last weekend, as you know, I was in Elkhart, Indiana for the Elkhart Grand Prix. That quickly has gone to my favorite place to eat when it comes to being at a racetrack. And hey, steps away from the hotel to the racetrack, you can't beat it. What you can't beat either is this battle for position between Carlos Barriero and John Kroom. Both you got a Lamborghini, Ferrari, so a little bit of family tradition there. I'm not talking about the drivers as they work their way through Le Mans down the straightaway. Let's see if that what is that? That's a V10 in that Lamborghini can step away from the V8 of the Ferrari. And no, you see John Kroom using that draft as he pops to the inside here, going through Sunset Bend. He's going to take a look as they're going to be side by side. So Kroom going to show himself, and he's going to really dive deep. What a pass that was there on Barriero. So he sits back in line.
And able to put together a brilliant overtake. It's still not over yet. Side by side across the stripe, Barriero and Kroom squabbling up as they head their way into turn number 1. Barriero gonna hold on to that spot. It's a low-slung Lamborghini and a low-slung Ferrari squabbling here. Can't really decide who's going to have the upper hand, but going down the inside with a nice dive as John Kroom. Barriero is still trying to make something work, trying to pull off a pass in the grass. A small little puff of grass getting kicked up in the air. More contact made as they head their way at turn number 5. Off the track they're gonna go, and now look right behind another driver trying to get involved in this fight. That right there is the number 17 of Bobby Childs. You have a fantastic view of this side-by-side fight as maybe not gonna work. Contact heading into the hairpin. I was worried that Barriero was gonna overshoot there. It looked like he left that braking a little bit too late, but it was actually Childs, the one that maybe just sent it off a little bit too quickly.
Yeah, that's going to be a great battle the longer that develops, because if Childs can get around Kroom, that's going to be a good battle for who's going to step where on the podium. As Childs having a great night so far. Granted, we are 17 minutes into this hour and 5 minute race, but you know what? Stranger things have happened at Sebring. Does anybody remember how the now points leading Wheeling Cadillac ended upside down a couple of years ago? Pepperidge Farm remembers. This goes to show you how Sebring can just change on a dime through and into the final couple of corners where you head down the Ullman Straight. This has got to be one of my favorite sections too, outside of the hairpin. Down the straightaway they come, and now the sun's starting to take effect, so good luck trying to keep the light from not blinding you.
Yeah, I believe The Weeknd sang about that once back in 2020. Blinded by the lights, heading down into Sunset Bend, seeing the sunset on the battling up towards the front of Shinsky and Palaquid Grant have split to the tune of about 1.9 seconds. There you can see Shinsky running very well in that Corvette. It's a trio of American tracks to start off this season. Those Corvettes have been very, very strong. Chinsky's still looking to try and get a good run going here in this race as we go through the early stages of this championship. These drivers can't really rest all that much because they do not have a lot of time to work with here in this championship. After the next round in 2 weeks' time, we're officially going to be at the halfway mark of the season already, Jeremy. So as much as it may be a long period of time between the first race of the season and the last, you've still got to make sure that you execute every single week out there on the road. So for a driver that's been running strong, a race result like this for Chinsky could be great. Could be good as well for Palaquid Grant, who has been kind of the poster child of consistently quick thus far this season.
All right, we just got an update from race control. Yeah, we have a new race control. Jeff Jacobs says since he got damaged early, he's going to be the race steward after all. 2 penalties so far. Bobby Childs has a 10-second penalty for spinning his teammates in turn 3, lap 1, and a 30-second penalty for Vidal for spinning the 11. So though that 30-second penalty, that's more of a slap on the wrist, I think. That's a harsh penalty right there, and really, I think the penalty fits the crime.
Yeah, I want to take a look at that, Josh, if we can pull up another replay of that. I know that's probably buried in the events log right now, so I'll give you a couple of moments to get it all pulled up. But the thing is about this track, Jeremy, which is fascinating, is the various different widths of the racing surface that you've got here. When you go through the south end, the old airport section, that's where it's super duper wide. And this is a section where the 2 cars made contact. There you can see it was Adam Cohn kind of keeping Vidal a little bit tight there on the inside. If we can just reel that back one more time here. And there you can see, I'll be 100%. I would say, I think 30 seconds is maybe a little bit on the harsher side there with that incident. Certainly major consequences for Josh Vidal, but I could probably understand his defense already as somebody who did race control here for this league for quite a while. Whenever I would call a penalty, I would already know what the drivers were probably going to say in response, and I feel I can see both sides of that argument there. I can see why Vidal would probably be upset about the move that Cone was doing, trying to crowd him down there on the bottom. I can certainly understand that Cone was probably trying to signal, hey, back out of it. Side-by-side racing through turn number 1 works about as well as trying to, team a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with, nitroglycerin.
And I'm going to take the approach I always do when it comes to those events. You take a look right there. Josh was on the vortex of danger. So, got to hand it to Randy Pope. So I know some people who I know probably not going to like me saying that, but then again, they were White Sox fans that wore Yankees hats when they were racing. So they kind of don't have a say in what I have to say either way. You get in that vortex of danger, you're kind of entering yourself into that type of penalty. With that said, watching the onboard, I can kind of see that a 30-second penalty might be a little harsh, but when you're a racer like Joshua Vidal is, you know about the vortex of danger. You know how it could affect you if there's net code. 6 in one, half dozen the other. I'll just say that much. Here's Aaron Sunday as he's trying to hold off David Patton and Chris Thorman. That's for the 11th position. Of course, Patton and Thorman are pro drivers making their way now down onto the straightaway. And we got to say hello to the Aaron Sunday fan club. Great to see them out in full force in the chat.
You always love to see it, and I believe it was Rachel Sunday in the YouTube chat saying that the pre-race, and actually no, it was Stephen Hudek, my apologies, that said everybody causes the pre-race interview jinx. So I guess we can take a little bit of weight off of our shoulders when it comes to that there, but Aaron Sunday, driver got to cover for the first time over in Porsche Club of America action many moons ago, back in December of 2024. I think I was 19 when I covered him in a race for the very first time. I'm starting to feel old. I'll be 100% honest. Dale Maxwell and David Klimovich.
You're starting to feel old.
My back is
Really?
starting to feel old. I crawl out of bed at about 10 o'clock in the morning, getting 2 minutes of sleep, and genuinely feel like I just got ran over by a steamroller. That's mainly just down to my years in karting, though.
Well, I will say this: Jeff Jacobs has given you a penalty for your opinion on the Joshua Vidal incident. Questioning the Stewart penalty, no ice cream. I say we go 2 races without ice cream, because come on, dude. Really? I feel old. Jeez, I feel that way every morning getting up, and I'm almost 40. Dale Maxwell coming out of the pits after his quick pit stop. So the pit window has opened. We mentioned how it was, 16, 18 laps that it would take for that pit window to open. I'm wondering if these guys in the back are starting to split it into 3 equal stints.
Yeah, I always advocate for these drivers to try and make the strategy as simple as possible. I always say that the brain of a race car driver is not only crowded with a lot of thoughts when they're out there on track, it's not an area that can really do a lot of critical thinking, just generally. So try and keep the strategy as simple as you possibly can. It'll do wonders because you can focus more on the side-by-side battling instead of just having to worry about everything else when it comes to the pit stops. Certainly very important, but with the worry about those pit stops, having to constantly think, okay, I need to hit this fuel number, I need to take this much gas, you're also going to run the risk of having some sort of mistake there on pit lane, either overshooting your marks, running wide through the box, maybe speeding. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong here at Sebring with the pit stop, so keep an eye on that as we go throughout the night. 2 more drivers coming down pit lane. It's Johan Alvarez in the number 25 and David Payton in the number 64.
I think that this right here might be the strategy coming down on working lap 11, that we do 11, 11, 11, 1, 2, 3, and you do it nice and even. And somebody's spinning the tires on the Jackson. Again, that's my IMSA rules coming into play, and how that is an absolute no-no out of Patton. But Again, I'm not the race director, as you see Alvarez up on, he's listening, yes, as the crew trying to change the tires. Alvarez on and off, 21.6, Patton 21.8.
See, I think if IMSA allowed alcohol sponsorships, I think they would allow the drivers to spin their wheels down to the pit stall, because you could probably shake up like a good, martini there down to the pits, just, stick the cocktail shaker onto the wheel and just let the driver rev the engine while they're up on the jacks. Seems like a pretty good life hack to me. Why use, just elbow grease when you could use a multi-million-dollar race car instead? Fairly simple game, happens to work. Following John Kroom in the number 45 car, hopping over the curbs as he currently locked in a fight with himself and David Klimovich. I gotta say, so far here, Jeremy, I've seen the curbs wreak more havoc onto these GT3 cars than I've seen in many of the other sports car races I've gone to cover here on iRacing. These are 3D curbs. This was actually one of the first tracks that brought out the 3D curbs. As never mind that, I think there may have been trouble. Johan Alvarez it was in the number 25 machine. He was spun by the side of the road. I wonder if he may have had some assistance here, because I did see a car slowing around it. Let's take a look.
The only assistance he had was that back end wanting to see what the front end's looking at. And really, we see that a lot when it comes to the hairpin, because you're coming from such a fast speed. You've got good momentum coming off a big bend as several of the other front runners decide to come into pits. Grant, both the Barrieros coming in. Let's see here. So that moves Sunday to third right now. Your provisional leader in the AM class, as the 26 Josh Vidal is on the jacks getting tires changed. There's Bobby Childs and Peliqui Grant in and out, 21.6 seconds.
And looking at those pit stop times, everybody round about uniform with this call to come down pit lane. I'm thinking, which is why you can smell the smoke. At this point, these drivers would be able to make it through to the very end, which is the reason why they're just trying to up it a little bit more in the pit stop lengths. But fascinating to see a little split strategy call throughout the pack. These drivers not really unified on what to do. This is a fixed setup series, so these drivers don't have to worry about just tuning their cars a little bit to make the difference. You've got to do it out there on the track through execution, and right now that's what these drivers are doing. Quick little mention as we see a little side-by-side fight here between David Payne and John Kroom heading off through the opening sector. Jasper Pasternak is currently holding on to P4 out there on the road. Now, Greta Pasternak, we saw started this race from pit lane, is effectively in no man's land and still has to come into the pits, but I do want to give some love to that 127 driver. Been keeping it clean at the start is Chinsky, now the latest racer to break away and come into the pits.
Your leader comes in, and he'll bring Eduardo Cabal with him. Let's see if Aaron Sunday does his usual stay out to the last minute, which for him it kind of works. But working our way, and Sunday closing in on the pit entry. As you see Chinsky on the jacks. What does Sunday do? And he's going to continue on to the circuit. Now, something to watch out for too, and obviously watching these cars coming out of turn 17 last time I was at Sebring, you do see how how you have the little rise there right by the tire wall, Ron. That is pretty well pronounced, and I don't think the TV does it justice. Makes it the highest point in all of Florida as Eduardo Cabal gets out of his pit and out 21.4 seconds. Jasper Pasternak into his pit stall right now as he falls down the order.
I was worried that Eduardo Cabal was actually going to make wall contact there on the pits, trying to give himself the widest berth imaginable to arc it through turn number 1. Pasternak out in pit lane right now, so this will leave just Aaron Sunday out there on the racetrack. You said basically a fuel-saving god a little bit earlier on, so Sunday able to put on a pretty good fuel-saving stint here at the start of this race. We'll be able to extend it closer to the halfway mark than pretty much everybody else out there on the road. Will be interesting to see whether or not Sunday will take advantage of this clean running at the moment, holding on to a spot basically devoid of any other race cars. The closest to him is 6 seconds back to find your second place runner right now, net race leader of Josh Chinsky. Farther up the road, the closest car I believe is Yeah, it's your current 18th place runner, who is heading through turn number 5 currently. So definitely a little bit of a berth. There's Elias Akbari in the number 55. Yeah, so Aaron Sunday has some clean running up in front, which may only be staying out for one extra lap. But clean air is a pretty good commodity to have here in Sebring.
But here's the thing. You don't necessarily have to worry about pitting within a lap of the window opening, because you're not, it's not like Road America where you have to deal with, rises and falls, and Sunday's going to come right into the pits. So you can play around with certain things. So Sunday, the last driver to come in and answer the call, is he will do it just before the halfway point in this race that will hand the lead over to Joshua Chinsky as he does take that lead. We'll see how long it takes him to get in and out of his pit stall, as now the Ferrari of Sunday is there. The crew is just standing there talking to one another. Sunday's expecting some sort of service, but I mean, you hire pit crew members to bring them on, and all they do, they're just standing there.
Yeah, they're fine. They're having a chill out barbecue. It's a good little thing that they've got going there. If I had the ability to get paid just standing around not really doing much, the only difference between that and the job that I have here at Slow Motion Broadcasting is I'd be forced to stand.
That's kind of half the job of being an announcer. The other half is actually going into these teams' transporters and taking all their snacks and their drinks. Trust me, it's the life, and you get paid quite handsomely for doing it. Oh, you get to travel the country and the world if you're lucky. Aaron Sunday comes out in front of David Klimovich for a 10th spot overall, and that's going to be 7th place in the AM class. So Sunday on the fresher tires, let's see if Klimovich does anything on the inside going into the hairpin. Not close enough, but Sunday able to get on that gas just a little bit quicker. Coming out of the hairpin, opens up about a 2 to 3 car length. Yeah, I almost said cart length. Tells you how much I said I had to say cart length over the weekend.
Now, I'll tell you what, this is kind of similar to a kart race with how competitive it is right now. We've got a little fight here between Dale Maxwell and Joshua Vidal. We saw Vidal with the penalty a little bit earlier on here. He's been able to bounce back as it stands right now. He hasn't had to serve that as a post-race penalty, so definitely gives him more of an incentive to take it to the limit here in this race at HSR Phantom Racing number 26. McLaren running at there on the racetrack as the lone McLaren representative here in this field, currently holding on to 9th, looking for 8th as Dale Maxwell punching a big hole in the air in that Mustang. Will we see a side-by-side fight heading downtown into Sunset Bend? Not going to see it quite yet, but you can tell Vidal is definitely looking to apply that pressure, lay it on as heavy as a tungsten blanket.
Oh, down the straightaway Vidal goes, and yeah, hearing from Jeff Jacobs, that will be a post-race penalty, and it may be less than from 30 seconds. It all depends on how many unmarked dollar bills that Vidal brings into the trailer. Oh wait, that never happens. Of course not. As Maxwell trying to get nice and defensive, going. Well, it works for us. Yes, I agree. Like I always say. I always, here's the thing. So when I was doing a lot of stuff with Grand Am, I always told the owners, you want me to talk good about you? Feed me. That's why Compass 360 is always one of my favorite teams. Doesn't matter what series they're racing in, whether it's in Canada or here in the United States. Anyway, Klimovich trying his best to close in once again on Dale Maxwell, on Vidal. I'm sorry, that's Klimovich getting around Sunday. Reading is hard for me when you're up at 3:30 in the morning dealing with storms all the way through the Midwest. As now Maxwell holding off Vidal, going through Cunningham, and now setting up for the run to the tower turn as it's Mustang over McLaren. Now here's the question I have, Ron. Is the McLaren at a disadvantage because it's the only one out there?
Well, I'm going to give you an answer real quick. Absolutely. That McLaren is a very bespoke car. It may look about as low as the Lamborghinis and Ferraris in the same class, but it's a very, very interesting case, this. It's a car that, had a pretty tough act to follow. The McLaren MP4-12C had been around since 2012 when they replaced it after a 12-year service back in 2024. So it may not be the youngest car in the world, but it's certainly a heck of a lot younger than the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis that are kind of a similar shape of it. It's sort of in that terrible twos kind of phase on iRacing where it had that initial spike of popularity, and then it's a little bit harder for people to really enjoy it. It's one heck of a good-looking race car, but trying to find the fine tune with it can be a little bit tricky to nail down here. So, but I'll definitely at a slight disadvantage. I wouldn't say it's a major disadvantage, but a slight one here. He has one benefit in terms of the BOP, which is a thing here in this championship. Not really hurting too bad. In fact, actually getting a slight. Just a small little bit of power reduction down to 0.5% heading off into this round, which is nothing compared to the Mustang that was taking 2% heading off into this round of the championship. You know, quick little story that I do want to share here before we get back into the action, Jeremy. You talked about not being able to read because you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is a true story. When my niece... actually, no, this was from my nephew. It was right before my niece was born. I got my nephew a copy of Dale Jr.'s children's book that he wrote a couple of years ago. And I said to my brother, this is full honesty, make sure that he reads, because I didn't, and look how I turned out.
Oh, so you gave him Driver 8. That's a good book for a kid, because you get to learn all the words across the spectrum.
Every single one of them. You get to be, familiar with the Philadelphia lexicon before you're even done with second grade. Worked for me.
And then you find out which word caused Dale Jr. to lose the next Stone Cup championship at Talladega several years ago. Dale Maxwell opening up a 1.5-second lead over the McLaren of Vidal. Now you've got Kroom, Sunday, and Patton battling each other for 11th spot. Kroom the Pro, Sunday the AM, and Patton the Pros. They work their way heading into Sunset Bend. I'm curious. Yeah, that dot, is that there? No, it's not there. Of course not. Why would it be there? As you see different lines working their way through the final corner. And yeah, I mean, it's great right in the apex. You have to run right there to be nice and fast and not have to worry about bumps. But the exit, I guess it doesn't matter too much.
I feel like this is one of those sort of deals where it just depends on a driver's general attitude out there on the racetrack. Lots of different lines that he can make work on some of the turns around this track. Turn 1, you see drivers kind of running a traditional apex, maybe some drivers late apexing it a little bit to keep the momentum rocking and rolling. Still remember the concept of late apexes. That is an idea that is burned into my head from my karting days. Keep the momentum rocking and rolling. We were told that all the time. But Chinsky certainly rocking and rolling here in this race, holding on to a 5.6 second margin over Paliqui. Grant, we could just barely see that BMW blow the metaphorical doors off of our camera there right by the curb. I want to thank Whiplash SimCams for the wonderful camera angles that we have during these broadcasts here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. But going through right now, Chinsky really, finding a good groove here in that Corvette.
Yeah, and here's the thing: you talk about BOP, and it doesn't matter if it's in the here in the game, or if it's all the way over in like IMSA or SRO. They've been able to get some good BOP, and we've seen the Corvette, the new C8, run up near the front. Of course, I say new as in the newest generation. So no surprise here that we're seeing it run quite well. Of course, if you have a couple in you, kind of thinking it's a Ferrari too. Well, it kind of looks like one to say the least. But Chinsky very fast at the hands of that number 18, working down into 18. Yep, heading into the hairpin. Let's take a look at second place. Although Paliqui Grant is about 5.8 seconds back. A good running for him in that Diablo Sport number 71, as we've seen Paliqui really run up to the front here on many of these championships, but it seems like today that BMW, although it is almost 6 seconds behind Ron, handling quite well.
Yeah, that BMW has really morphed into being one of the most consistently strong cars on all of iRacing, especially in this GT3 series. It is a predictable race machine. You've got some really good straight line speed, which I always, found to be a bit of a shock considering the aerodynamic properties of a brick that this BMW does have. You've got that. You've got some pretty solid handling. If there's one thing you could say about the BMW, it will not bite your head off depending on what mood it's in. It's fairly tame. If you irritate that BMW, you know exactly what you did wrong, and you know how to make changes farther down the line to make sure something like that doesn't happen. It is a predictable platform, that BMW, as part of the reason why it's used by some of the best drivers and some of the best teams in all of iRacing. Remember back last year covering some of the special events on the iRacing channel, Team Redline, more often than not, was running some of those BMWs in the GT3 races. They just enjoy the stable platform that car is. That's also part of the reason why the Porsche is a rather popular pick, although despite that, there's only one Porsche running in this race, and it's actually right behind the driver that we're focusing on right now. It's Johanna Alvarez, who's really attacking these turns. You can see him just diving off every single time, notably heading off into turn number 15 there a few moments ago.
Nostrils on that BMW, just make sure that you showered and at least put on some sort of fragrance, because it will smell you as you work your way down the back straightaway. You see Alvarez try to go side by side here with Thorman, and Thorman gonna get an opening there, but Alvarez trying to dive even deeper, contact between the two, and Alvarez spins just a little bit, half spin. It's been a rough race for the Porsche, but he's able to get going.
Yeah, unfortunately, that Ditch Doctor racing car has been getting a lot of dings on the body panels as we take a look at a replay to show you what happened. It was side-by-side racing, heading down the Ullman straightaway into Sunset Bend. May seem like a good spot to get a move done, and it is on paper, but in practice, really tricky to go through here side by side. Alvarez trying to go on the cutback. I talked about how aggressive he has been on the corner entries, and unfortunately, that just came back to bite him on the hind end. And again, talking about the different lines that he can run, especially through that final turn. I think it was two drivers running very different approaches. Eventually, there is going to be that point where both cars were going to meet, and sadly, they were side by side when it happened. Unfortunate contact there. Not sure how race control will judge that. I think that may unfortunately go the way of Alvarez. Another kick in the shins. Well, it's been a pretty tough race meeting so far here at Sebring.
A lot of drivers having problems. Ilyas Akbari into the pits. Solid black flag out of that Aston Martin, but Shinsky cannot put a wheel wrong. Let's see how Akbari copped that black flag and got the stewards ire, and it's right into the wall and right under the bridge, and that's definitely an incident limit right there, as you see Chinsky opening up that gap to 6.3 seconds over Grant and Cabal. Cabal further back, but the only battle on track I'm watching right now, Ron, is that one for 8th place between Dale Maxwell and Josh Vidal, about 0.7 of a second separating the two of them. You see they're close to one another once again.
And so keeping our eyes locked on this battle as things do intensify with the pit stops. Noah Hogg and John Kroom, a duo of drivers breaking away and coming down pit lane. Those drivers, as we saw a little bit earlier on, were trying that two-stop strategy, seeing what could work, what will work, and what won't work here. I fear that two-stop strategy may be good on paper, but in practice, it's not really working out the way these drivers would have had in mind. They've certainly been quick, but making up time in spades here at Sebring is a real tough ask.
Don't fear the Reaper. Just, don't. As Maxwell, you look out back at his Mustang as Vidal closes in 0.3 of a second, separate the two of them. But once again, the second that Maxwell gets on the loud pedal, that opens up to a 3-4 car length gap. And now Vidal trying to do what he can to see any sort of moves as Adam Cohen out of this race. No surprise there, but Vidal, he's trying to make a race of it, and that's our best battle on the track right now. Ford versus McLaren. Doesn't make a good storyline, but heck, it could here tonight as they work their way into Tower Corner once again, and they'll set themselves up for the long run towards Sunset Bend. I have a feeling that Vidal's going to try and see if he can make a run at Maxwell in turn number 17. You see on board where they are on the track. It's in the upper right portion of your screen. Now setting up for Le Mans. Down the Ulman Straight they'll go. And look at the jump that Maxwell gets on Vidal. That is absolutely fantastic. Kind of staves off any sort of chances. Now Maxwell taking the defensive line down into the Ulman Straight, breaking off that draft that Vidal could have used. Let's see how late he gets on the brakes. So not late enough, but you take a look at the bridge, and yeah, remember how we were talking about that blue dot? Yeah, not going to happen. However, Maxwell is going to dive into the pits for his second pit stop of the night.
Yeah, may not see the blue dot, but seeing the pit lane speed limit approach as he comes down pit lane. David Klimovich going to break away and come into the pits there as well in the Mercedes. The thing is with those Mustang drivers, probably one of the easiest cars to defend it. Not only is it massive compared to some of its counterparts, so you could just completely surround a car that you're going side by side with, you also have the benefit of that straight line grunt. It's a Mustang. If it was slow on the straightaways, I would have some questions.
Oh, that would just be a parachute there on the end. As you see, the pit stop is done. Klimovich is in and out. 12.2 seconds, by the way, for Dale Maxwell. So I'm wondering if he's going to run a little bit shorter stint here for the long run down to the finish, as we are closing into about, we are 20 minutes away. So that actually kind of lines up as they work their way around. You see Klimovich getting around Kroom. Oh no, that's actually the lap car, I should say, of Akbari. There's your leader, Chinsky. So would not be surprised to see a whole mess of cars come down into pit road for the final time here in just a little bit. You see Chinsky running up and over that that 17 runoff. Here comes Palqui Grant. He does the same. Again, it's the highest point in Florida as they work their way through one of the flattest states in the country.
You know, see, I was going to make the joke that Randy Lanier's old place was probably the highest place in Florida, and then I looked into it. I believe he was living in Virginia at the time, so you can scratch that joke. But Eduardo Cabal in this Ferrari, holding on to third as it stands right now, effectively all by himself, although Felipe Barbiera is not too far behind, so keep an eye on those two. They may start to battle here rather soon. I am curious here, Josh, if we can take a quick little gander at the championship points as we head our way off into this round of the championship. Of course, this is as of the end of race number 2, so this is not up to date with how these drivers are running here currently. Just getting a good eye in as to how things have been throughout this campaign. It has been very competitive start to this season for sure. We'll load up the championship points here in a few moments time. Start off with your AM category, where Carlos Barbiero has been a pretty quick driver. There you can see the competitive nature of this class. Joshua Vidal only 2 points back, tied on points with Julio Barbiero heading off into this race. I don't believe Julio is here tonight. Aaron Sunday is. We'll make some inroads there. Bobby Childs in P5, Johan Alvarez in 6th, Jimbo Pfeiffer, Noah Hogg, Jesper Pasternak, and Russ Ruddock rounding out your top 10. Give some love to Russ Ruddock there. He is the software guy from XMS, the paint updater and the race control software. That is all of his making. Really good work that he does there. You can see the rest of the drivers lined up. Back to Andre Wedderburn, yet to start so far here this season in the 151 machine. We'll take a look now at your pro standings here. Palaqui Grant holds on to that. 5 points, though, the gap between himself and Eduardo Cabal. That shows you how competitive it has been throughout this season, but Palaqui looking to make some inroads in that points battle and try and grow that margin just a bit, leaving the third round of this season. John Kroom is in 3rd, Chris Thorman in 4th, Jeff Jacobson P5, David Payne in 6th, with Lucas Dragata in 7th, Joshua Chinsky in P8, Carter James in 9th, Ilya Speaker completes your top 10 with Leo Dragata not on the board as it stands right now. Here, still very early on into the championship, only 2 races down. Let's take a look at your team's points here. Speed Lab Esports holds on to it right now. 244 points is the tally so far. D2D Sim Racing is in 2nd, Rockefeller Racing in 3rd, Velocity Motorsports in 4th, with HSR Phantom Racing rounding out your top 5. You can see the rest of the teams, the rest of the organizations, the fine organizations that we have got in this series, rounding out the rest of your pack. But we still have some pit stops. Chris Thorman latest racer to break away there in the Aston Martin, a surprisingly popular car here in this series. 4 of them out there on track tonight.
Yeah, four definitely. Again, like we said, after the Evo, it seems like that has been a very popular car as they make their way down into their pit stop. Did he back up just a little bit? I think he did, and that's gonna hurt. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, confirmed they kind of missed his box. That's gonna hurt him as Thorman now rolls out 11.8 seconds, but a little bit of time lost there in the Delta as he had to kind of back up and get back onto his pit box. Let's see where he was at, 43.5. If he missed it, he missed it by just a little bit.
Yeah, but those small little miscues can make a world of difference here at this track. That small little time loss can be big. So unfortunate to see any mistake like that. Again, talking about the nature of the pit lane, it feels rather monotonous as you head your way through there with the cars blowing your doors off there, keeping going out there on the racetrack. You can really get into your own head in that slow trundle down into the pit stall, so it's very easy for a mistake like that to go down. I've seen it in high-level, quick sports cars. I've seen it in slow sports cars. Here in slow motion, oh boy, as David Klimovich nearly getting into the back of David Payne as he ended his way through turn number 10. You can tell that was close because I sounded like a tornado siren there. But in the other AE Sports Summer Shootout Series that we have here on Slow Motion Broadcasting and the Weekend Warriors ranks generally, lots of pit stops making a big difference there in that championship. And whenever the pit stops come about, the drivers can sometimes really get into their own heads and force a mistake, even when they're not being forced by somebody else. It's just a matter of staying with it, keeping in your own brain, but not staying too far in it either.
Of course, we know the drivers do very well staying outside their own brains sometimes. Yeah. All right, as we watch David Patton try and close down John Kroom, this is the battle of the race right now. It's an in-class battle, actually for fourth place in classes. Kroom sitting in 12th, Patton in 13th. Again, that's for overall position. Once again, if you're just joining us, thank you for joining us here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Jeremy Scott alongside the one and only Ron Maunz. And if you're wondering why we're doing multi-class GT racing, well, the red is the pro class and the green is the AM class. And those are the two colors that you see there on top of your screen and also on the tower right there. And the white, well, that means that's the car that we are watching. Makes us announcers feel oh so good. And I always wonder why we can't do that in pro racing. But then again, with some of the directors I've worked with in pro racing, I wouldn't want to ask those questions because I'm just too afraid to be in the truck. Patton closing down, and Klimovich also trying to close in as well for position. Now, Klimovich in the AM class trying to see if he can make his way up through the field and close in on Noah Hogg, though that's easier said than done. Of course, Noah Hogg, our earlier race interview, had problems, and the announcer's curse is alive and well here in the Ricmotech GT3 Challenge heading into Cunningham. Now, while we have a little bit of a breather, did you see that road there that's on the left-hand side of your screen? Yeah, that actually used to be part of the racetrack at one point. So think of how far that we have come. This track actually used to be a lot bigger. Used to use some of the return roads for the what used to be the Naval Air Base here, and used to use a lot of the tarmac. So what is a decent sized track now actually used to be almost twice as big back in its heyday.
Yeah, and this track, of course, was the first ever host of the Formula One United States Grand Prix under the current World Championship regulations way back in the 50s, although it was not the host of the first ever Grand Prix event in the States. Jeremy, do you know what that track was?
I gotta think was it the original Watkins Glen?
It was not. It was Indy back in the wonderful decade when the Indy 500 was a part of the Formula One World Championship. And as an Indy 500 historian, I can say that is statistical hell.
It is statistical hell because, yes, stop and figure. How many international drivers flew over to Indianapolis just for that one race? You know, it was always an American. There would always be one American there in the 50s that was a F1 race winner. So that's something to think about. I should have said that because I should have known better.
Yeah, I think Bill Vukovic is one of the only multi-time, well, one of a very few amount of multi-time American Formula One race winners. So that's a fun little bit of information. We'll say we have been given a fun little bit of information relating to two of the drivers on the alternate strategy, those being John Kroom and David Payton. They were the ones on the alternate strategy thinking, okay, maybe these top runners have to come in for a small little splash and dash, get some fuel in their race car, and I think right now it's working out in their favor as Palikwi Grant, Felipe Barbieri, and Carlos Barrero all coming down pit lane here this time by for a small little splash and dash. A little bit more than that in the case of these racers. Keep an eye on those two. They're currently holding on to 12th and 13th. They may be able to climb up some spots.
That'll be interesting. We'll see how that plays out. And, they may not be battling for the wins, but either way, it will be a very interesting run to the finish as we are just under 10 minutes left to go in this race as Joshua Chinsky leads overall and in pro. Filippo Barbieri is your leader so far in the AM class. Working off a pit road, Vidal, who is staring down a penalty of some sort for incidental contact going into turn one. Rolling off from the 9th position right now, 6th in the AM class. See, I can do math, just fingers and toes. That's all you need sometimes. Good battle here, though, for 6th overall. 3rd in the AM class between Bobby Childs, Aaron Sunday, and Jasper Pasternak. Just a little bit up the road as they work their way coming out of Big Bend. And now sets up for the hairpin. You see Pasternak looking to the outside of Aaron Sunday. Sunday with the defensive line into the hairpin. Dives just a little bit deeper for position as still you're heading through the hairpin. And of course, race control telling us Palikwi in and out of the first final pit stop, and those guys are still way back. Top 4 should be safe for now, barring any sort of incident. Knock on wood. Strange things happen here at Sebring, so we could see really anything can happen. So kind of hold your breath for the next 10 minutes if you can do so, as Pasternak's going to lose some ground to Sunday and Childs for that 6th spot.
I can barely hold my breath for 10 seconds, so that may be a little bit tricky for me to try and do. Josh Shinsky, Eduardo Cabal down in pit lane, keeping an eye on their pit stop times in reference to Palikwi Grant and Felipe Barbieri. Keeping our eye on Shinsky as he's out of pit lane right now, able to get a quick stop there, 10.5 seconds. Palikwi gonna jump back up to 2nd. Cabal 8.9. That's a really good stop for him. Not really going to be able to exit out in a fight, but that is a good thing. He's going to have a rather stress-free end to this race. Going to be able to run the final 7.5 minutes, basically like a glorified track day.
Come on, man, that's an insult to track day drivers. You know better than that, as Cabal closing in on the end of this race. Top 3 kind of spaced out there in the pro class, and now you see Pasternak into pit road as Sunday losing ground to Bobby Childs as they work their way out of the track. And of course, one thing that I have noticed, Ron, you mentioned this as drivers were coming out of the pits, that there are some drivers who are kind of taking their mirrors up and into the wall going into turn 1. Something to watch out for.
Yeah, that is something that could easily end in tears. Concrete, it's not soft and cuddly like a teddy bear in real life, and it's certainly not the case in the sim, but a small little tap against that can very easily wreck your race car. We've seen, iRacing sometimes, they see an incident, it's 2 + 2. Most people usually get 4. In some cases, the iRacing coding can end up with goldfish, and you'll find yourself with a completely wrecked race car. Netcode is a thing for a reason. It's also part of the reason why many an iRacer definitely do have a little bit of nightmares, I think would probably be the most genteel way that we could put that. But keep an eye on that as those drivers exit the pits. It's the right call to try and get as much momentum through turn number 1 as possible. But, any small little misjudgment there, small little miscalculation, and that wall tap, it can, either mess up the aerodynamics on it, which is a big deal here at Sebring with quick turns and long straights. It can maybe mess up the suspension, which will be bad through all of that. It's not a good deal if you hit the barrier. In other words, the sky is blue.
And in other words, water is wet, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, fun fact about this area, Ron, did you know that this is also home to the Bassmasters Championship?
I did not. I'll be honest.
Yeah. It's also home to the Spray and Pray gun shop, but, you know, that's my little fun fact. But, yeah, I found out last time I was out in Sebring that that next week they were hosting the Bassmasters Championship. There's a bunch of good lakes out there. So next time I get out to Sebring, I should probably bring my rod and reel and go out and probably catch some fish and probably get in trouble for it because I'm too cheap to get a visitor's fishing license. Those are not cheap. As they work their way down off the hairpin, under 5 minutes left to go. Chinsky, he's got plenty of room as he works his way around. There's Cabal sitting there. There's your leader coming out of tower, setting up for the back portion of the racetrack. Got about 3 to 4 laps left to go in this race. I would say about 3 laps to go once he comes around, but it has been a dominant performance on Corvette so far.
Yeah, that it absolutely has. Chinsky really finding some firm footing here in these GT3 cars. Stephen Hudek in the YouTube chats. A driver who's run with us before here in XMS competition on slow motion broadcasting, standout star in the one season of the IndyCar series that we covered about a year ago here on the channel. And Chinsky's teammate at SRT Esports letting us know that Chinsky really capable in these GT3 cars, has scored a past league championship over in another series. And of course, you know, this isn't the only XMS league that races these GT3 cars. It is pretty much just drivers that are looking to try and get their feet wet in the world of extreme motorsports, one of the most storied leagues on all of iRacing. They can get their toes wet in a series like this. Fixed setups, not a whole lot of commitment into it. You just need to paint a good-looking race car and try and have some fun and not wreck anybody. Certainly don't wreck the series admins, because that is an easy way to pick up a penalty.
Well, that's just good. That's just great form anywhere you need to race. So, kids, if you're watching, you want to know how to get in iRacing, don't wreck the admins. That's basically how you do a Pelican Grand in that number 71. Coming into the hairpin, we are just about running shy of the race. The sands in the hourglass, they're getting heavier on the bottom, but either way, Aaron Sunday making the late call into the pits. I'm kind of surprised that he decided at the last minute that he was going to come in and do a quick splash and gas, because he is now falling down through the order. Unfortunately, not a chance to go into the podium. But then again, when you're running flat out like that and having so many cars that you're dealing with, Ron, it's trying to save fuel. You know, unless you're Scott Dixon, you're not going to be able to do it.
Ooh, as you can see, Sunday also clipping the grass and clipping the dirt as he added his way out of the pits back onto the circuit. No harm, no foul, and actually going to be able to get a move done on that lap. Car is going to dive out of the way. That right there, I believe, was Ilya Akbari in that Aston Martin. But yeah, I feel like fuel saving is one of those things where you've got to have a very specific mind to be able to pull it well, as we see a little battle here of Chris Thorman and David Klimovich. One of the drivers I've gone to cover for many moons over in the Weekend Warriors ranks. A nice Swiss gentleman by the name of Jörg Mani. Very quick driver, hates fuel saving with a burning passion. So he usually just doesn't play that game. Works out in his own right, but there's other drivers in that championship that fuel save like there's absolutely no tomorrow. We see a little bit of that here in this series. Sunday, really good on the fuel saving. Others, not really a fan of lifting and coasting.
Exactly, because you don't really have the fuel knobs to play with here. As we're on our penultimate lap, by the way, as Chinsky coming around once again, setting up to make that long run down into the hairpin. Actually, now that I think about it, this might actually be the last lap, as Chinsky in the Corvette has put nothing but dominance in that number 18 SRT Vet. So weird to say that if you're a Mopar guy down heading into Cunningham for the final time at speed. Chinsky, your pole sitter, has led basically from the get-go. Only time he's relinquished the lead, well, that is so that way he could have serviced that Corvette off through Cunningham, setting up for Tower once again for the final time. Your pro leader looking pretty good here. As long as nothing goes wrong with the vet, he will come around for the win off a tower for the final time, making the long run down into Le Mans. It's basically a flat out a couple of corners. Might have to lift it a little bit here and there. But either way, Chinsky has shown the way. Had a little bit of a challenge early on, but he has gotten up near the front. A couple of drivers that he would have to worry about for the challenge, not a factor. Down, heading towards Sunset Bend. He weaves back and forth. Time is run out on the clock. Heading into that final corner, he hits the brakes right under the TireRack.com bridge. Neat new addition to the racetrack as of late. Around Sunset Bend for the final time, Joshua Chinsky comes down off the final corner, looks up at Barney, checkered flag is out. Your winner in pro and overall is Joshua Chinsky. 5 seconds in arrears will be Palakui Grant as he comes across the line. Gotta wait a little bit for Eduardo Cabal, but if all goes well, Ron, he will finish off in 3rd place.
Again, so as Cabal heads his way across the stripe, we now switch our attention to the driver who looks set to capture the victory in the AM category. Filippo Barbieri gonna head his way onto that start-finish straightaway in the Rosso Esports 186 car, sputtering as he heads his way across the line. It'll be victory for him in the category either way. It was close though between himself and Carlos Barbiero. Only about a second between those drivers at the very end. I think he heard that I was talking about him winning that class and wanted to try and prove me wrong. Joshua Vidal got come across the stripe in P7. But we'll have to see how things work out when it comes to post-race penalties. Currently set to lose about 30 seconds. We'll see if things do get changed in the week. We'll let you know accordingly come time for the next round of the championship here in 2 weeks' time. And of course, you'll be able to see the action all season long here on Slow Motion Broadcasting.
Rest of the field coming across the line right now. Johan Alvarez and Ilyas Akbari, the final 2 cars to come across the line for the checkered flag as they work their way through the field. And really, in spite of the low car count, Ron, I think we actually had a pretty decent race tonight.
Yeah, I think we had a pretty solid one. The strategy content kept us intrigued here in this 15-minute longer race than the ones we have had throughout this season. And the drivers did bring the heat out there on the racetrack. This is one of those circuits where you can actually battle. It's not a far-fetched ideal to be able to go side by side throughout a couple of turns in a row and battle throughout a whole lap. It's part of the reason why the Sebring 12 is one of my favorite endurance sports car races of the calendar year. And I'll tell you what here, Jeremy, and this is honest, we've had some brilliant tracks to start off this season. Just looking at the trio to get us rolling. Road America for round number 1, Road Atlanta for race number 2, and now here at Sebring for round number 3. We're still going to keep the momentum rolling as we hit the halfway mark of the season in 2 weeks' time, because we're going to be running at Long Beach. We're going from one bumpy racetrack to another, or we're going from one that is, wide open, have a lot of room to run and hide, to one where one small little mistake can be your last.
While Chinsky's doing donuts on the front straightaway, as much as I'm amused by this, let's take a look at the finishing order as we know it. Again, this is all provisional because we do have at least a couple penalties that will have to be served. Of course, they will be post-race penalties, and we'll probably have an update for you here in a couple of weeks' time. It's Joshua Chinsky, the driver doing the donuts now, your winner over Palakui Grant, Eduardo Cabal. Your 4th place driver is your AM winner, Filippo Barbieri, alongside Carlos Barriero, Bobby Childs, Joshua Vidal, Noah Hogg, Dale Maxwell, and David Patton round out your top 10, Ron.
And looking from there, Chris Thorman completes a pretty good recovery drive. We saw him slide out of turn number 5 at the very start of this race. He ends up in P11. David Klimovich will come across the stripe directly behind him in 12th. Lucky spot P13 at the end of the night will go to Aaron Sunday. Jasper Pasternak will be in P14. Johan Alvarez will be in 15th. John Kroom is in 16th place. Elias Akbari will be in P17 with Adam Cohn there in 18th spot. Just two more drivers of note, neither of them grabbing the checkered flag. Jeff Jacobs and Russ Ruddock both DNF from this race in the early stages. It was not only a very competitive race, but all in all, Jeremy, pretty clean one as well. We didn't really see too much in the way of incidents, which is saying something. This track is one that can not only come back to bite these drivers on the hind end, it can make the drivers bite each other on the hind end.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fact too. When one car goes off, another one does. And it's just a fact here at Sebring with all these cars just so tightly packed together, especially at the start. Let's bring on our overall winner, Joshua Chinsky, as he is basically had a dominating win here at Sebring. And Joshua, first of all, congratulations. What is there to say? I mean, it seemed like you just wanted to get off to Disney World early, and you held out a large lead.
Yeah, it was, this was an interesting one. I wish it had stayed the temperature it did during the practice session and the start of the race. The Corvette actually likes it a little bit hotter around Sebring. As soon as those track temps dropped into like the mid 80s, my front rights just had no grip, and this car is actually terrifying to drive around here. I was very nervous coming into here because that BMW is just so planted. I thought Palakwi was going to have this one.
Yeah, and that's kind of surprising with this ton of as far as a gap that you had there, that car was terrifying. Now, how was it did you have to keep the same tires on so it'd be less terrifying, or was it just, you know what, let's just swap tires because whatever happens, happens?
So in hindsight, I should have kept the tires on, I think just for the less sketch factor. I did end up changing tires just because I knew there were a couple times in the first stint that I really got into the ABS pretty hard. And with the tire model, if you get into the ABS, it just hates you later in the stint. So I just wanted fresh rubber, and it was free. But in hindsight, I should have just kept the tires on because by that point it was like 82 degrees track temp. And it took forever for the tires to get up to temperature, and I don't really think they ever got to peak temp. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied, though, with my performance. I don't know if the broadcast caught it, I had a major scare going into turn one. I pushed it a little too far and downshifted right when the RPMs were a little too high in fifth gear going into fourth, and the back end stepped out on me. And I think I came probably about like 3 feet from putting the right side of my car into that wall.
Yep, you definitely don't want to be doing that, especially here at the race. Next time out, Long Beach. We go from one historic track to another, but this time the walls, they are a lot closer there.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna be honest, like every single day is a new day, so who knows what's gonna happen. Street circuits are my paradise. I cannot wait. If you had told me Adelaide, Long Beach, St. Pete, that's where I'm home. So I'm looking forward to the concrete jungle.
Fantastic. Well, Joshua, congratulations on your win. A very dominating win. Anyone you want to thank?
Absolutely. First off, shout out to you guys with Slow Motion Broadcasting for putting on just a spectacular broadcast. I can't wait to watch this back. You guys are just awesome at what you do. Shout out to XMS for putting together this series. I get to race against a lot of fun people here, and some new faces too. I don't believe I've ever raced against Palakwi, and he definitely keeps me on my toes and pushes me to be better. And last but not least, shout out to my team, SRT. Those guys are just absolutely awesome. Some great group of people, some great racers. The time that we take to put in and watch telemetry and try and figure out how we can get every little tenth out of it. It's just a great group of people. So wouldn't be the driver I am today without their help. So I want to thank them.
Well, congratulations, a fantastic race, and hey, we'll see you in a couple weeks at Long Beach.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
That's Joshua Chinsky, your winner, pro and overall. Now Ron Maunz is caught up with our AM winner, Filippo Barbieri.
Yeah, and our AM class winner, Filippo Barbieri, joining us here in the broadcast booth. Filippo, welcome in. Congratulations on the win in the AM class there, my friend. How was it out there at Sebring?
It was good. I mean, obviously, I was a little bit nervous before the race because my car was massively BOP'd. and I had basically had no speed on the straights, but I did what I could and survived it.
And still able to make things work. I want to ask you about how tricky it was to try and manage it with that BOP. We always think that this Mustang is, super strong on the straightaways, but that BOP kind of feels like tying one of its legs to the other. It's just like walking around in a hacky sack or something like that.
I mean, I'm gonna try to be courteous, but it was awful because I'm not gonna get into the whole fact that I don't think it was very fair, but it's like, when you're like getting BOP, I think the final BOP was like -2%, which is a lot of horsepower out of a car that's already very heavy. So you have to basically fry your tires on all the corners to just try to mitigate loss on the straightaways, and you're not going to pass anybody because whatever car I had in front, it was impossible to pass. I was like stuck in no man's land. You're not fast enough to make a pass. You have to manage the race. So racing like that is not a lot of fun, but it is what it is.
Well, hopefully the win makes up for it here at Sebring. Want to ask you about the next round of the championship, Long Beach, in 2 weeks' time. What are your thoughts heading there?
I think if unless they decide to BOP me the Mustang even more, I think it will be a very good race because there's not a lot of long straightaways, and I like that track. So it's got to keep putting in the work. A lot of people don't realize this because I get some slack for racing the AM class, but I don't think a lot of people are putting about 400 or 500 laps of practice in before these races, which is ultimately what gets the result.
Well, and certainly looking forward to seeing what Long Beach may have in store in 2 weeks' time, pardon me. But Filippo, before we let you go and celebrate this AM Class win, we'll let you give any thank yous or shout-outs.
Yes, I'd like to thank my family, especially my wife, my team, Speed Lab, and everybody that supports me on this. And I'd like to dedicate this win to anybody that's ever been bullied or intimidated in sim racing. I know there's a lot of hate out there, but just put your head down and keep doing what you're doing. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Hey, man. Take it easy, man. That right there was our AM Class winner, Filippo Barbieri. Some wise words there at the very end. Jeremy, I'll pass the mic back off to you.
I've never had a win dedicated to me. That's a first. Either way, it's been a fantastic race up and down the field. And of course, as we mentioned, we've got another race in a couple of weeks at Long Beach here for the Ricmotech Racing Simulators GT3 Challenge. Of course, we've got to thank our sponsors once again, Ricmotech High Performance Sim Racing Equipment, Go Setups, and Go Fast, and the SCCA Foundation. Well, in spite of the low car count, as we said, it was a fantastic race up and down the field. Lots of great strategy as 2 pit stops were brought into play. And now we get to see how the cars and stars fare at Long Beach. For Rob Maunz and Joshua Wilkie, my name is Jeremy Scott. Don't forget to keep it point forward, keep it between the ditches, and always keep it greasy side down. We'll see you in a couple weeks' time here on Slow Motion Broadcasting.